Welcome back to Godless and Grounded. Imagine this. You're standing at a crossroads, told you can choose any path. But before you move, someone hands you a map, already drawn out, already marked. It shows you the road you'll take, where you'll stumble, where you'll succeed, and even where you'll fall. And then they say, you're free to choose. That's what religious free will often looks like. It's not really freedom. It's more like being told to pick a card from a deck where all the cards have already been arranged and the outcome already known. Religions love to talk about free will. They say you are free to choose between right and wrong, good and evil, belief or disbelief. But in the same breath, they also say that God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and has a divine plan for everyone. That God knows everything that will ever happen, what choices you'll make, what sins you'll commit, whether you'll end up in heaven or hell. So the obvious question is, if God already knows what you're going to choose, are you really choosing it all? Let's take a step back. Think about this logically. If something is truly known in advance, it cannot be changed. If God knows with absolute certainty that you're going to steal something next Thursday, can you not steal it? Because if you don't steal it, then God was wrong. But if you must steal it to keep God's knowledge correct, then you didn't have free will. You were simply fulfilling a prophecy. It's like watching a recorded football match. You already know who will win, who will miss the penalty, and who will score the final goal. Now imagine telling the players they are free to play however they want, when, in fact, the match has already been decided. That's the dilemma at the heart of religious free will. In many religious texts, especially in Abrahamic faiths like Christianity and Islam, the contradiction is very clear. God is described as omniscient. He knows everything. He knows the past, present, and future. He knows the secret thoughts in your head before you even think them. But if that's true, if your actions are already known, then they're already fixed. You can't do anything other than what God already knows you will do. Otherwise, God would be wrong. But can God be wrong? According to religion, no, which means your choices aren't really yours. Let's explore this with a practical example. Say a teacher tells a student, "You're free to answer however you want on this test, but I already know you'll fail." Now, if the student fails, was that free will? Or did the teacher set them up to fail? And if the teacher had the power to help, to guide, to teach better, but didn't, then isn't that teacher partly responsible? Now scale that up to God, an all-powerful being who created you knowing exactly how you'd turn out, knowing you'd make certain mistakes, knowing you'd choose wrong, and then punishes you eternally for those choices. That's not free will, that's entrapment. Religions also say God created each person with a specific nature, personality, and tendency. Some people are born into poverty, others into wealth. Some are raised in violence, others in peace. A child born in a strict religious home is told what to believe from the moment they can speak. Another is raised atheist or in a completely different faith. Their choices, their actions, their entire worldview, shaped by things they had no say in. And yet, when they grow up and make decisions based on that environment, they are held fully accountable as if they had complete freedom from the start. Again, where is the real free will? Let's bring in another angle. Prayer. In religion, people pray to change outcomes. But if God already has a plan, already knows what will happen, then what's the point of praying? Either your prayer was already part of the plan, or it wasn't going to change anything. Imagine watching someone writing a book and then begging the author to change the ending, even though the author insists the ending is perfect and cannot be altered. Then why pretend your request matters? Why pretend your choices can make a difference? In some religious stories, God even hardens people's hearts. In the Bible, it says God hardened Pharaoh's heart so he wouldn't let the Israelites go. Then God punishes Pharaoh for disobeying. That's like tying someone's hands and then blaming them for not clapping. It's a setup. Some religious scholars try to defend this by saying, God knows what you'll do, but he doesn't force you. But that doesn't solve the problem. If God created you, knowing every detail of how you'll behave, and then placed you in the exact circumstances that would trigger those behaviors, then you didn't have freedom. You had a script. Even if you think you're choosing, you're just walking down a path that was already laid out for you. It's like programming a robot and then blaming it for the tasks it performs. If you created the robot, wrote its code, gave it commands, and then got angry at it for doing what it was programmed to do, how does that make sense? Think of a mother giving birth to a child with a genetic condition that causes violent behavior. If she knew about the condition beforehand and had the power to prevent it, but didn't, can we really blame the child for being what he was born to be? Now imagine a God who creates people, gives them specific traits, and watches them struggle and fail, then punishes them eternally. That's not free will. That's cruelty disguised as justice. Even in daily religious life, the illusion of choice is clear. People are told, you are free to believe, but if you don't believe, you'll burn forever. That's not a choice, it's a threat. It's like being told, you can leave the room, but if you do, I'll set your house on fire. That's not freedom, that's coercion. And here's the thing, real free will requires uncertainty. It requires unpredictability. If a system, like a religion, claims both perfect knowledge of the future and perfect justice based on your choices, it collapses under its own contradictions. You can't hold someone responsible for actions that were never really up to them. Many people who leave religion talk about the immense guilt they carried. They were told their thoughts were sinful, their questions were wrong, their desires were evil. But these thoughts and desires came from their own minds. Minds they didn't design, shaped by genes they didn't choose, influenced by families they didn't pick. They were told they had free will, but were judged harshly for things far beyond their control. That's not moral, that's manipulation. Some religious thinkers try to create loopholes. They say God exists outside of time, so his knowledge doesn't interfere with your freedom. But that doesn't solve anything. If God knows right now that you're going to make a certain decision tomorrow, then that future is locked. You can't change it. And if you can't change it, then you never had free will to begin with. Let's go even deeper. Imagine you're in a maze. You think you're exploring freely, but the walls were built long before you entered. Every turn, every dead end, every exit, it's all already there. You're just navigating it. Religion says life is like a test. But if the examiner wrote the test, handed you a broken pen, made the questions impossible, and then judged you for failing, would that be fair? When religions talk about free will, they often point to morality. Without free will, they say, you can't have moral responsibility. But ironically, religious morality often removes responsibility. The devil made me do it. It was God's will. Everything happens for a reason. These phrases are used to excuse actions, avoid accountability, and shift blame. True morality requires accepting that people are shaped by their biology, upbringing, culture, and environment. That doesn't mean we don't hold people accountable, but it does mean we stop pretending that every action is purely a matter of choice. Here's a final thought. Look around the world. Children born into war zones, people born into poverty or abusive homes, or oppressive cultures. Do they all have the same free will, the same ability to choose a better path, the same opportunity to find the truth or worship the right God? If not, then the entire idea of divine judgment falls apart. Because if some people are born with better odds, then the game is rigged. And if the game is rigged, then free will is a lie. In the end, free will in religion is like a magician's trick. It looks impressive, but when you understand how it works, you realize it's just misdirection. Religion tells you you're free while quietly stacking the deck. It promises choice but demands obedience. It speaks of love but enforces fear. And worst of all, it blames you for playing the role it cast for you. We all want to believe we're in control, that our lives have meaning, that our choices matter. And they do, but not in the way religion claims. Real freedom comes from understanding ourselves, from questioning inherited beliefs, from accepting responsibility without divine puppeteers pulling the strings. That kind of freedom is hard, it's uncertain, it's messy, but it's real. And that's a freedom worth choosing.